your impetus from going from back mount to side mount?
Just the thrill of it, I think. Back in 1987, that was, I think Lamar was the only one that you could talk to that I knew. Of course, there was Woody Jasper.
Well, Woody and Wes, I mean, I wrote the first program for it. I was a training chair. So I wrote the first course for it. So we actually started having, some real training for it. It was all about the cave dive. But we were doing it because we had gone to the end of the lines where Shaq and the other guys had gone. And they had stopped because the cave got too small to dive with doubles. And we'd go back and tell them, hey man, it's still going. They just look at us and grin and go, yeah, but there were too many more to go do. As Bill Wayne puts it, and I was part of that. We were all in the days of the low-hanging fruit. So when this one got tight, you just went and found another. So when our generation came along, we were going to what these guys stopped at or what they wouldn't go into. And there was a whole lot of stuff out there that just required different techniques. So we went side mount. And that's how that evolved, is we had to go to the next level for the low-hanging fruit.
It was Lamar and Bill that got me into side mount. And the reason being was I was taking my doubles off and going through restrictions. And I remember you that one day saying, dude, you're gonna die, you're gonna lose your cylinders. And so I looked at Bill's second rig there is the one that I based my rig off of. And I remember Lamar telling me, he sat me down one day and he said, you gotta stop doing that, there's a better way to do it. And he was right.
Yeah.
He was right. Taking doubles and pushing them through restrictions is a good way to die.
Yep.
The side mount started in England, right?
Yep. The Brits were doing side mount. I've got a presentation on the whole history thing on it, where I've got a lot of good friends around the world. They sent me pictures. So what was really strange was when I contacted Duncan Price over there, and he sent me some pics of what they do in England. So I'm looking at them from the 60s, and I'm looking at them from today. They haven't changed. We evolved. They didn't. but that's mainly because what they do over there, cave diving at Wookiee and places like that, it's a nuisance. They're actually dry cavers that have to get through some water. So their whole thought process is not about maintaining visibility or penetration. It's what do I have to do to get through this mess. So and so they still have that same mentality today. I mean, half the time they don't even wear fins. Okay. But when I saw the pictures, I'm like, when I saw the pictures, it's like, wow, there's almost no change except you look older.
Any other questions? Be more than happy to answer anything you want to answer.
You still diving?
Am I still diving?
Yeah.
No. But I just had a knee replacement. I got an artificial knee today. So maybe I'll be able to put, I got so I couldn't put my fans on. And I figured if I can't put my fans on, there ain't no sense being diving.
Some of this Bill's been talking about, I can elaborate on why some of the changes happen. Okay, like the bicycle inner tube. Woody Jasper was the first one to come up with using bicycle inner tube. Woody Jasper was probably the pioneer in the U.S. for side mount. He started it around 1981, 82, introduced me and Wes to it in 82. And bicycle inner tube. Well, bicycle inner tube became the mainstay for everybody's side mounting by 86. Because I started dating a little girl called Leanne that had a bike store in Lake City. So she got to know all the cave divers, because I'd be like, when they're side mounting, just go see her. She's got a whole box full of inner tubes. You can see which one's going to fit. So none of us were buying inner tube because she just had a whole box of them from bicycles there, and got to know a lot of the young cave divers. So I'd send them over there to get bicycle inner tube. So we went with that, but then they started getting weaker and weaker. They would tear easily, and that's when we started looking at bungee and going to a bungee option over bicycle inner tube because of that. But some of the stuff, like with the BCs, the reason this transition, this one right here especially, you see those holes right there? Okay. Dan Lenz, back in around the late 80s, we were in Cal Springs. He had discovered the warm plane lead in Cal Springs. And we went back there, and he got stuck. So with the BC fully inflated with a set of 104s on it, those two little openings there would ride up on the back. So a little knob of rock got caught in it. And he was stuck. He could not move or get out. He's back there screaming and yelling at me, and I'm yelling back saying, just quit moving because I can't see anything. And I went back and I was able to push the BC down to get the rocks out of the holes there so we could come out. So then we started redoing the bungee and getting it through the holes, everything we could do to pull that down so we wouldn't have this little balloon up there with those holes on the BC just saying, grab me. You know, so we started rerouting some of that stuff, things like that. Bill was doing the bottom inflation thing. He was the first one to come up with the idea of dual inflation because everybody was just using a standard jacket BC. And I remember doing some side mount clinics early on, and I'd be like, okay, how many of you know how to side mount? And you know, hardly nobody would raise their hand. And then by the next year, a lot of people are raising their hands. And I'm like, okay, so why are you here? Let me guess. You can't get horizontal, you can't trim out, your butt's always down. Yeah, that's it. I said, so you butt mount your canister light? And yeah, can't help it, okay? You know, because you're talking about a canister light back then, it was lead acid batteries, and those suckers weighed 8 to 10 pounds negative, okay? So Bill was the first one to figure out how to deal with that by putting in that secondary bladder on the bottom so he could counter the weight of that canister light, okay? The rest of us were just dealing with it, mainly with a dry suit, but Bill figured out how to do it by adding that second bladder, okay? So that second bladder on the butt back there helped counter that 8 to 10 pounds negative weight back there. So that was where some of that came from, you know. So it was like when we started talking about all the evolution of it, there was always a little problem we were trying to fix, okay? Like I said, Bill with his Ven drill, I said, I knew where that came from on that dive. And then all of this right here with this rigging, putting all this over it. I was at Rock Bluff Springs one day, and the dive down the south route, I had to abort the dive and spent 20 minutes looking for all the parts to put that back together because I ripped it off going in. So that's why doing things like that, so you would not have a catch right there. You know, so now of course everything comes up from the bottom or it's protected inside, so you don't have them exposed like that. But back then, we were just dealing with what we could put together from a jacket BC, okay? And yeah, the front buckles, to be able to pop them loose and slide out of the rig was very important because those things were, you know, kind of bulky for what they were. And even though they helped the side mount, man, they were line traps looking to happen every time you got in there. So there was more than once you would want to be able to pop the buckles and slide out of it, okay? And then put it back on after you got through. But the main thing, we were all dealing with converting our big steel tanks to side mount. You know, that's why things have gotten so different today, because one, you got Mexico where everything's aluminum 80s. They're basically neutral in the water, so you only need about 20, 25 pounds of lift for the most part. But here you start doing steels, and now you still need that 30, 40, even 50 pounds of lift, depending on how you put everything together. So we were coming from that, and we needed these jacket BCs that would give us, what, 40, 45 pounds of lift, Bill, to be able to get everything, you know, so we could try to trim out. So we had so much bulk with what we were doing. But there were so many evolutions of that harness. Bill was the first one to introduce this attachment, okay? Before that, we were using just the riggers like this on the side, okay? And we had bolt snaps on them. Bill was the first to come up with getting rid of the snap, because when we clip into it, if you tried to walk with it, you could bend the gate and break it. So the bolt snaps didn't last long, so Bill figured that out there. And then Bill was actually probably the first one to come up with an idea for a butt plate, okay? But it wasn't really a butt plate as we know it today that Brett Hemphill did. He did this. He put these bars and made these things. Yeah, Bill was sought after quite a bit for that special bar that he had designed to go onto the bottom of a jacket BC for the tanks. Okay. He was the only one that ever did that, as far as I know. And that's what people would go after, because with those steels, it allowed you to get those tanks back and get them to trim out nicely. Because putting them up here, it wasn't as easy as using Bill's plate across the butt. And then that was the inspiration for Brett Hemphill to do the soft one that became the Armadillo. Okay. So that's where some of the evolution came.
I got a dumb question for you. What is the plate for?
That's where you
Hook your
put the
tanks
tanks.
on. Hook your tanks
The
on.
back side of your
Yeah.
cylinder, so the back of the cylinder, you have a cam strap that goes on there with some type of attachment. You hook that on there, and then you have the loop of
Lunging for the inner tube for the
inner
neck.
tube that goes on the neck. And
Yeah.
so that puts the cylinder straight on your side.
Yeah, and the whole problem
okay.
with that was it's all about distance. So you take the average person and you're going to clip that tank to the waist right here. Well, you've got this. And then if you want to truly side mount the bottles, then the neck with the valve can only get up to here because it needs to be underneath the arm. So doing that, you would have that clip at either halfway or just above center, which means it's really bad for your trim and buoyancy and controlling the tank. So you needed to be able to get that attachment point of the tank lower, which means it had to be lower than your waist. So Bill came up with that. Well, that's one of these plates. See, they drop down below the waist
Right.
for that attachment. And then Bill wanted them even lower, so he came up with that. So he could lower that clip on the tank so that the tank would stay like this more. So even when it got empty and slightly positive, well, not positive, but just neutral, it wouldn't move around like this a lot because you'd have it attached to a lower point and it would keep it solid into your rig.
Okay.
Yeah. Because one of the other things to worry about was with side mounting, a big deal, and it was the ratcheting effect. So if you had a high attachment point here so the bottom of those tanks could move freely, and you went into something, and you went into this hole, and it was just enough to make those tanks bend like that to go in, and then you had to back out. And that's why Bill said you have to be able to get out of that rig. You can't get the tanks off, so you can pop the rig out, slide out of it, and then bring it out behind you. Okay? I mean, this was all learn on the fly. We didn't have a manual for this stuff. I mean, the only thing we had were what the Brits were doing, and all that did was tell us everything we didn't want to do.
General rule of thumb on the tank, the lower you drop that band, the more your feet come up. If you raise the band up on the tank, your feet will go down. So that's the final adjustment of getting you so you're nice and trim.
It's all about that, fulcrum point, that point of balance. And you wanted to get that band down, so that was Bill's solution for it. Here again, that was the first butt plate, so to speak. Okay?
Right.
He made those and formed them. All I did was say, man, you're putting way too much time into that. Custom making those butt plates.
And we all shared the information. So Bill made me a hard plate like that, and then Brett came up with the soft plate, and I looked at Brett's soft plate and went, oh, I can do the same thing. So I attached it exactly how he's got it here, but with a soft plate. And so it just slowly but surely we progressed.
Right.
We used to hard mount our battery canisters, butt mount, and I learned the hard way. I went into something and had a rock drop down and it wedged between my back and the battery canister and was now wedged on the ceiling, and I couldn't get to the attachment because the rock was in the way. And so I spent a whole crap load of time wiggling my way out of it. And so that's when I went to a soft mount so that I could take the battery canister and move it off to the side. Little things like that, you just don't think about it until you're in the situation. Then it's like, what do I do now? Well, you got to work it, and you got to really conserve your gas and be calm, because it can take some time to work it out. Like Bill said, he used up an entire cylinder just working his way back out of a hole he just went into. He wasn't even in the cave. He just went to enter and got caught in it.
If you go by comparison, like with the lights now, okay, back then, 80s and 90s, you could take the light canister and take today's primary light, drop it in there, drop 3 backup lights in it, and still close the lid. But that was the size of just the battery pack back then.
Right.
Okay, I mean, and like I said, they were 8 to 10 pounds negative. So I told you about Dan getting caught in cow. Well, we got out, and then he's telling me it's still going. So we go back the following weekend. Well, we get started, and Dan's got some problems with tanks or lights or whatever, and I just say, okay, bye. So he went out to take care of his problem, and I went on solo. So I got back to the end of the warm plane lead line. I looked at where Dan had gone through, and I'd already fixed the back of my BC. So I went on through, just to find it ended on the other side. Everybody thinks it's still going when they turn around. but it was just a little drop on the other side, and it was dead ended. So I turn around to come out, and I get caught, and I'm solo. And I'm like, crap. So I'm checking, I deflate the BC, I've checked my breathing hoses, I cannot figure out what I'm caught on. So I plant a foot on the ceiling and I push as hard as I can because I'm solo. I got nobody to help me. And my light goes out. That big ass canister on my butt, I had snagged the light cord. And when I planted my feet and pushed, I snatched it right out of the canister. So whatever few ounces of buoyancy I had in that canister was gone. So now I'm even more negative, and I'm now coming out from 4,000 feet back on a backup light in a side mount cave. And fortunately, at about 2,500 or so, I see Dan's light. He's trying to catch up with me. You know, so we come out, and I'm on backup light, and I'm holding the handle of I'm holding my light head with the cord right here as we swim out. But that's why, you know, today everything is so streamlined. So for me, it's kind of comical sometimes when people get so critical of things, and I go, man, look at what we started with. And you're upset about a cable being 6 inches longer than you would like it.
Well, my problem is, with the weight that I've lost, I still know where there's a lot of line to be laid. Well, I can get probably through some of them holes today.
Well, I don't know about those lines, but I know you got a lot of lines.
Did Bill tell you how he found all those caves? Come on, Bill, you aren't telling them all your stories?
How's that?
All the river rats, as we called them, they would dive the river for fossils and such like that. Bill would offer them free air fills for every cave they introduced him to that went somewhere. It was like you gave him so many if they showed you something, and then you gave him extra if it went somewhere. So he had all these river rats.
I give them 20 free air fills if they showed me a cave that didn't have line in it.
Well, they had rewards even back then.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how Bill got turned on to all those river caves. Those river rats, man, they wanted those free air fills.
In 1997, Florida opened up the Withlacoochee and Swanee River to Fanning Springs to deadhead logging. Deadhead logging is the original logs they tried to float down the river. Of course, you know, everybody throw on 50, 60 pound of weight, and they walked the river bottom. So I knew they were going to go over every inch of that river, and I just said, hey, I'll give you 20 free air fills if you show me a cave that don't have line in it. So, because, you know, I'm sure all of you are the same way. I took my cave class and I said, oh my God, why couldn't I have been here in the 60s? You know, when the Peacocks was found and the Little Rivers was found and this and that. And I always figured the caves of the future would be in the river. And so yeah. Turned out to be pretty good for me, yes.
Sometime in the early 90s, I remember I was complaining to you about, you know, oh, it's all been found. And that's when you told me to go over to Lafayette Blue, and if I couldn't find something there, I was blind.
That sounds
Sure
familiar.
enough, he was right. There was tons there, and I believe it was Adam that didn't you get a hold of me, and we had a conversation. And I said, boy, if you can't find something in Lafayette Blue, you're blind. And you're still finding Going Cave there today, aren't you?
Yeah, you pushed Sandvalanche, didn't you?
Yeah, I got about 4,000 feet in there right now.
Yeah, past Sandvalanche?
No, I don't have anything past Sandvalanche.
Okay.
I'm still collecting your survey, actually.
Yeah. All I know is that kind of scared the hell out of Mark Long, bless me.
Yeah.
When we slid down and the sand came in behind us, and we were having to dig our way out to get back out.
Yeah, Wes
up
said
Sandvalanche.
in order to get through it, he was actually going to the bottom of the hill and digging out the bottom so the top could
To
come
slide.
down.
Yeah.
The wildest thing?
That you can talk about.
You can tell it, Bill.
There are kids present.
So we're not going to discuss coming out of a cave at Jenny in the middle of the summer.
Or you and your swim trunks.
Or Telford.
Be nice.
Hey, when you were in there in your trunks, did you ever get snagged up and lose them?
No, I don't think I ever did.
That's good.
Back to your question, there is some caves that had some awful big animals in them.
Really?
I don't know how they get back that far in the damn cave, but they're there. And again, you know, it brings it out that the like one of my lectures at the cavern class, but the I'd always ask my students, you know, there's aquatic animals that live in the water, but they're just like us. They got to have air. So if they get lost in the cave system, they're going to die. And I guess my question to you is what animal is that?
Alligator.
You get that turtle here.
Turtle.
Yeah, alligators, turtles.
Alligator, turtle. Well, and
Alligators.
Rock Bluff is the rumor turtles.
Well, exactly, the turtle Zion.
For some reason, why that one room's got all those turtle shells, I
They
don't
didn't run a
know.
line.
But you're right, alligators and turtles. And then the river caves, oh my God. I'm petrified of snakes. But these river caves are full of moccasins. And I've often wondered, how can they get back into a cave system and how can they survive to get back out? There has to be a reason for them to do that.
Are they as happy underwater as they are above?
Bill Astrick's wife, Diane, I can tell you a story about her. I give her a side mount class, and after they had Carl, I don't know, Carl was 6, 7, 8 months, 9 months old. She called me up and she said, Bill's coming to Peacock to teach. She said, can this night, can you take me side mount diving? Bill can watch Carl. He can dive during the day and I'll dive at night. And I said, sure, Diane. So, it's a pretty cave, but now then, the owner he even puts no trespassing, even cave divers on the sign.
Bathtub?
Bathtub.
Yeah.
So anyways, we were in bathtub and sure enough, of course I'm kind of leading the dive and I see, there's a nice sized moccasin and it was over there in the crack kind of swimming up the side. So I showed Diane that and she swims over there thinking, I guess she was going to pet it, and I'm thinking, you know, if you get in trouble, you're on your own, because I ain't helping you. And the thing gets me is people say, well, a snake can't bite you underwater. Well, no bullshit, how do they eat? I mean, how do they eat?
Very careful.
When we got done, I said, Diane, I didn't know whether you knew it or not, but you were on your own. But no, turtles, alligators, they're definitely in the river caves.
What about cars?
Cars.
Yeah, I heard people put cars and like tires and throw all kinds of shit in.
They're usually not back in the cave, so to speak.
But like at the entrance and stuff,
Well,
right?
at the entrance, like Peacock Springs over on the Chipola River. It's also referred to as Mattachok. The entrance, there's a car in the water just in front of it. It's what you tie off to when you go in. Okay, it's an old wrecked car. Then there's places like Rose Creek, which is the furthest most northern entrance to Ichetuckty that we've dive traced. It takes about a week to get to Mission Springs and Ichetuckty River. But it's a creek bed that only during high water will have water in it. And but because it siphons and goes into that hole, we pulled out over 2,000 pounds of trash, including tires, rims, newspaper vending machines. Of course, the coin tray was busted open. All that in there. That were between this 200-foot stretch between one suck hole and the main entrance body. So that conduit there had all kind of trash debris, tires, rims, all that in it. But the story that we were actually looking at when we were doing it that day, because we pulled out a barrel that was about 300 foot in, but all that stuff gets sucked in. And we pulled out a barrel, we pulled out milk crates, and there had been a story that around the turn of the 19th century that the water was high enough that it actually bridged the suck hole and the spring here, and people would swim in it and everything, and a wagon with horses fell into it, and they couldn't get them out, and they got sucked into the cave. Well, about 200 feet from the entrance, we did find the metal parts of what we were told was the metal rim of a wagon wheel, and we found the jawbone of a horse. Okay, I'm not saying the story was true, I'm just saying we found these things inside the cave. But we've been told that story that stuff got sucked in there. Some of the river caves, like on Siphon Creek system, one of the sinkholes between Myrtle's Crack and Track 1, we have a sinkhole we call air conditioner sink. And that's because somebody dropped an air conditioner in that sinkhole, and that's how you know you found the sinkhole when you're swimming below it, because there's the old air conditioner sitting there. You know, so you will find stuff in there in some of these places like that. But you know, if they're in there, it's because somebody uses a dump site and it got washed in, or there was a sinkhole. And sometimes, you know, you'll find it and then you look up and you can see that there is no hole there because it's filled in again. And usually those are evident by you'll have a talus mount that all the collapse is at. And then you might find some things like that, and then boom, it's filled in from up topside. Edward Spring over on the conjunction of the Withlacoochee River and the Swanee River. It's a really neat place to go to, guys. If you just go west of Live Oak on 90, and then after you cross the Swanee River, there's an exit for Swanee River Day Park, which is part of Swanee River State Park. Pull into there and park. And
cut the locks.
Just walk over the wire and toward the Withlacoochee River, and you'll see the remnants of an old hotel. Because right there at that river junction, Edward Springs on the Swanee County side, and then Swanacoochee over here, there was a ferry crossing. They went there before, you know, back in the 1800s, before the bridges. So you've got the remnants of an old hotel there, and this little spring that you have to literally drop to your knees and then crawl over a boulder to get in, that had a grist mill there, so you can see the remnants of the grist mill there. But on the other side, the Edwards side, drops down to 130 foot, and within, you know, 200, 300, 400 foot inside, you'll start finding all these porcelain shards. You know, so you can find pieces of saucers and cups and everything where things had been dropped in that spring at that ferry crossing. So it is I mean, if you had the time, you could find a lot of stuff sitting down there. We've always wondered what may be down at the bottom of that crack, because it's a narrow crack, high flow, about 40 foot long, that drops down to 130 foot. So if they did drop anything, there was no way they were getting it back. You know, and there are remnants of some old wood and everything down at the bottom of the crack. But, you know, no one spent any time there just looking to see what was there. But its claim to fame for cave diving is that you've got Edwards over here on the Swanee River, and then you've got Swanacoochee here at the junction of the Withlacoochee and the Swanee River. So if you get in at Edwards, you wind up leaving Swanee County, going under the Swanee River into Hamilton County,
Or Hamilton.
and then under the Withlacoochee River and surfacing in Madison County. In Hamilton County, in Madison County. So you traverse 3 counties and 2 rivers. So there is stuff to be found, you know, down there, but it's rare. Bone-wise, the most classic alligator skeleton is sitting in Hart Springs. It's like fully intact. It was carbon dated to be like 180 years old, and it's still laying there. Bone was removed, carbon dated, and put back. And then there's a place in Holmes Creek, a cave that when you go into it, there was a dugong skeleton embedded in the wall. First room, it just jumps out at you because the skeleton is just hanging out of the wall. Really cool.
Where was this at, Lamar?
This is in Holmes Creek over on over in Mariana area, Holmes Creek.
One like that at Beacon Woods.
Yeah, so it's like it's in the middle of the creek. Okay, so a really cool one like that. And then, what Bill said, the Turtle's Ion, as we call it, over there at Rock Bluff. Okay.
Hey, Bill,
Oh yeah.
famous people want to go cave diving or whatnot. Have you taught anybody? That's famous? Movie stars or anything like that? I mean, these people get rich and then they want to go do stupid stuff, so you guys got to teach them.
One of the classic stories happened here back in the around '83 or so. I was working at Branford Dive Center, and this guy was diving Peacock, and some cave divers came up to him and told him, "You shouldn't be diving here. You're just open water certified." And the cave divers told him, said, "No, you really shouldn't go in there. There's a dead body in the cave." And the guy freaks out. They didn't know this guy was an off-duty cop at the time. So he immediately calls the sheriff. And the cave instructor makes his way back to Orlando. I'm not going to mention any names, but Ron Minke was the guy who told him that there was a body in there. So we get back into the shop Sunday morning, and Sheriff Leonard is calling us to, like, "Hey guys, there's a body there. I've had deputies there all night long. I haven't let anybody go in. I need you guys to come in here now and get that body out." I start laughing. It's like, Sheriff Leonard, it's a dead armadillo in the bottom of a pothole. "Where is that Mickey? I'm going to kill him. He's not going to get out of this county."
If there's nothing else, I guess we'll close.
But
Bill needs to.
Bill, you ain't taught nobody famous?
Have I taught somebody famous?
Yeah.
Oh,
Or had
You know?
Or had anybody come?
Bill, you can talk about it.
Well, we've had several.
You can talk about it.
Huh?
You can tell them.
Picture in the
You
shop.
can tell them. Got a picture in the shop.
The picture in the shop.
Oh, yeah. Well, Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he who was it from Orlando trained him?
DJ.
Herb Sugden trained his wife.
Herb
Yeah,
Sugden.
Herb trained his wife.
And Eland's trained too. They used to come because they want tanks filled because they used to dive Telford. Because see, nobody'd be at Telford in the middle of the night. I mean, you got to admit one thing: Tiger Woods can't go no place. the crowds ain't gonna bother him.
But he trained his bodyguard reluctantly because
Yeah,
the
the bodyguard
had
got
to
a
go
free
cave
cave
diving with
class. But
And the story goes, Dad had a lot of cave divers because Elon was there. So yeah, they like to watch Elon buy stuff off the wall. So
The bad thing about that was when the guys were telling me that she was around and Herb was teaching her, I don't know what they were more excited about, the Hummer she was riding around in or her.
There you go.
Wait a minute.
Bill was excited about her. So
well,
You didn't care what she was driving, huh?
she was nice looking.
Bill, on behalf of the NFSA, we'd like to present you with a lifetime membership.
Okay, well, thank you.
For all your support.
Yeah, I've done a lot for Peacock Springs through the years.
And
Lot for cave diving.
Cave
Huh?
divers.
Lot for cave diving.
Cave diving.
Yeah.
Divers.
But
a
no,
lot for people in general.
Yeah. Good guy.
well, I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Yes.